Back in November of 1995, Namco filed a patent for auxiliary games in loading screens. This technology meant that a smaller game could be booted quickly, allowing fans to have something to play while waiting for the main game to load. It's something you might have expected to see more often, and we probably would have seen it more often if Namco hadn't hogged the idea all to themselves. Even so, developers have found plenty of other ways to make loading screens interesting, and you'll have no doubt experienced most of them. We've all seen cute animations, model viewers, a handy tip or world-building text, or even a fourth wall-breaking accusatory message directed at the player. Okay, you do you. Today, however, we're looking at 10 loading screens that specifically let you do something. And no, rotating a model or reading some text does not count as doing something in my book. After all, the whole point of video games is interactivity, right? Otherwise, what are we even doing with our lives? So, I'm the still loading Peter from Triple Jump. I'll be right with you. There we go, done. And here are 10 video games with playable loading screens. Number 10. FIFA. One way to get around Namco's patent was to have playable loading screens that look like a trimmed down version of the main game, and just call it a practice mode. Namco's patent specifically applied to separate games with different coding, so practice modes that used the same gameplay as the main game circumvented the need to throw any royalties in Namco's direction. As a result, many sports titles allow players to practice while the game is loading, but the well-known football franchise has arguably made the most out of this feature over the years. Here you can take to the arena as your favourite player and go one-on-one with the keeper as you work on your skills. It kept FIFA fans busy during loading screens and also provided what felt like a glimpse into the daily lives of players, training in an empty arena as they tried to master their craft. Many players found they would get so involved in these lovely practice modes that they'd still be plugging away well after everything had loaded, ignoring the prompt to start the game. In fact, a good number of FIFA players have probably spent more time on these loading screens than they have in actual matches, such as their tendency to rage quit after going a goal down. I guess all the practice in the world won't teach you good FIFA etiquette and sportsmanship. Am I right? Yes, I am. Number 9. Bayonetta. Even players who'd rather be slaying things than kicking balls around need time to practice too. One action-packed title that was gracious enough to let us master the moveset during loading screens is Bayonetta. Originally released in 2009 for the PS3 and Xbox 360, Platinum Games action-adventure has a deep combat system which players will make significant flashy use of during the game's many spectacular battles. The Bayonetta loading screens break up the action by transporting our favourite battle witch to a strange red-tinted void and letting us rehearse difficult combos to our heart's content. A handy list of commands is also displayed on screen, so you can try to master some of the trickier moves without the risk of a penalty. Now, this is all well and good, but happily pressing buttons in a relaxed environment is a whole lot different to trying to pull off complex inputs when something like this guy is breathing down your neck. Bayonetta 2 retained the loading screen combat practice, but turned everything blue, perhaps to represent its status as a Wii U exclusive at the time. Interestingly, players learned how to exploit this loading screen practice mode to be able to charge certain moves and then unleash them in-game, getting sneaky immediate hits on bosses and even bypassing some situational move restrictions. And that's notable in itself. Playable loading screens are rare enough, but it's really not often you come across an exploitable loading screen. Number 8. Rayman Legends. Rayman Legends is a 2D platformer that offers satisfying cooperative multiplayer for up to 4 people. The game was embraced by fans and critics alike for its gameplay, graphics, and overall presentation. The cooperative multiplayer is an especially nice touch, allowing friends or family members to join you in traversing the dangerous platforming sections or fighting the big nasty bosses in cooperative harmony. The loading screen, however, gives players a chance to get a little bit competitive. Before the main level loads, a shadowy realm appears and players can race across it to pick up a valuable heart power-up. The The power-up allows you to absorb an extra hit in the game, and as such, the race to claim it can turn into something of a hilariously backstabbing slap fight. The only downside is the game doesn't take very long to load, so the whole thing can be over before you've gotten anywhere near the power-up. In fact, the re-releases on more recent consoles don't have loading screens at all. Stupid advancement of technology stealing my power-ups. You're the reason I can't beat any of the underwater stages. Number 7. Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed, the series that allows players to experience various significant historical events all over the world and stick sharp implements into lots of people while doing so. Known for its impressive renditions of ancient Egypt, Revolution-era Paris, Victorian-era London, and more, the series also has a modern sci-fi twist, with each game being a genetic memory brought to life by the virtual reality of the Animus. But what's that got to do with interactive loading screens? Well, in most of the games, the player is able to control the character during loading. You can run around an ethereal landscape, jumping, dodging, and performing cool combat moves at will. It's fun, but it also works in service of the story too. This strange void is the Animus, which itself is loading the present-day protagonist into the genetic memories of the historical figure. When you look at it like that, the Assassin's Creed loading screens are actually loading screens within loading screens. Or maybe they're only loading screens that are pretending to be loading screens. Honestly, I'm not really sure whether I should feel impressed or betrayed. Number 6. Oni-Chanbara Bikini Samurai Squad. Tasteful Xbox 360 zombie hack-and-slash Oni-Chanbara Bikini Samurai Squad was originally released back in 2006, featuring zombies, samurai action, and swimsuit babes, not my words. It definitely seemed poised to appeal to a certain subset of the gaming community. Alas, for the most part, it failed to ignite the interest of its target audience, with reviewers citing clumsy, repetitive gameplay and a shaky frame rate as just some of its problems. It did have a loading screen minigame though, and it released right in the middle of Namco's patent period too, so how did they get away with it? Well, it's hard to say, but maybe Namco just didn't think it was worth fighting at this point, especially against such an understated release. Still, it gives you a little more respect for the bikini-clad samurai girl game, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Anyway, the minigame in question is a very simple 2D zombie slashing affair in which the player can use their little bikini samurai to hack away at little zombies and earn little experience orbs. The fun to be had here is also little, but at least the zombies aren't also wearing bikinis. With a game like this, that was never a foregone conclusion, so we have to be grateful. Number 5. Okami. Originally released in 2006, critical darling Okami is an artistically presented action-adventure game in which players take on the role of Amaterasu, a wolf goddess on a quest to defeat demons and save the land. Integrating a beautiful traditional Japanese art style into the gameplay, Okami features a celestial paintbrush mechanic, which players use to perform special moves and affect the world in interesting ways. This artistic theme is continued in 2 loading screens on the original PlayStation 2 version, during which players can interact with a canvas to earn valuable demon fangs. Both playable loading screens ask players to cause inky paw prints to appear on a canvas, one by tapping a button in rhythm, and the other by simply mashing the buttons as fast as possible. The latter especially creates a delightful mental image of the dignified Amaterasu stamping feverishly on a piece of paper with her little goddess wolf paws. It's adorable. These loading screens were removed for the PS3 and Wii versions of the game thanks to faster loading times, but were actually put back in for later re-releases on more modern hardware. You can turn them off in the settings though, if you hate fun. Number 4. Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3. A Cyberman, no not that kind, is an alien creature from the Dragon Ball Z universe. It grows from bulbs that are planted in the ground, which is why their heads kind of look like cabbages. These little green fellows evolved from plants on a planet far away, and their bulbs are harvested by individuals hoping to grow their own little Cyberman army. Why am I explaining this to you? well, so you understand what's going on in this entry, of course. Do keep up. Released in 2004 for the PS2, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 is a cel-shaded fighting adventure that allowed players to step into the shoes of their chosen character and embark on a wild journey of bulging muscles and over-the-top action. The battles are extremely fast and intense, and you might find yourself grateful for the odd post-combat loading screen, just so you can give your thumbs a rest, to be honest. No such luck, however, because the loading screens in this game ask players to furiously rotate the analog sticks to make Cybermen pop out of the ground. If your analog rotation skills are impressive enough, you might even make a red Cyberman pop out. What does this mean? Well, who knows. But if you manage to make one pop up before the loading screen ended, you're officially an analog twiddling master. It's difficult to do though, so be careful you don't break your controller or your thumbs. Or both. Number 3. Ridge Racer. One Namco title that made use of the company's patent was Ridge Racer, landing on the PlayStation in 1994. The first game in the series, famous for its crazy drifting, arcadey thrills, and penchant for joining various consoles' launch lineups, Ridge Racer was praised for its visuals and gameplay, and it became a mainstay for years to come. The game chosen for Ridge Racer's loading screen was Namco's Galaxian. Released in arcades in 1979, it was Namco's answer to Space Invaders. It saw players firing at an advancing formation of aliens in a desperate bid to last as long as possible against the swarm. In Ridge Racer, if you were able to beat the wave of aliens during the loading screen, you were rewarded with in-game cars. I guess the aliens had taken them hostage or something? Other Namco titles with supplementary loading screen games include Tekken and Tekken 5, both of which also chose to opt for space-based action, and 2004's PSP version of Ridge Racer, which included 1981 top-down driving oddity New Rally X as its loading screen entertainment. Interestingly though, most Namco games that were published during the patent period, from Tales of Symphonia to Katamari Damacy and beyond, never even bothered with loading screen minigames at all. Honestly, Namco wouldn't let anyone else use the idea, and then they barely even used it themselves. Bunch of squatters, I tell you. Number 2. The Sims 3. From its release back in 2009, The Sims 3 allowed fans the world over to, quote, play with life. Around the 2013 release of the expansion Into the Future, rather late into the game's lifespan, The Sims 3 allowed players to play with loading screens too. Depending on your computer specs, The Sims 3 could have a hefty initial load time, and for many players there was little to do during this period other than sit and anticipate all the interior design, obsessive meddling, and overseeing of woohoo you'd soon be getting up to. As of Into the Future, however, players could enjoy hidden object style tasks, in which they find the item described at the bottom of the screen, earning in-game aspiration points for doing so. There is a downside though. Many fans reported that this interactivity actually caused longer load times, as well as in-game lag and even crashes. As such, many Sims 3 players turned the feature off. I guess it's back to just staring blankly at the screen. Maybe just get up from your desk and make yourself some cheese on toast. Don't set the kitchen on fire though. You can do that when the game's loaded. And number 1, Joe Blade 2. Joe Blade 2 for the ZX Spectrum was an early action game that put players in control of a tough vigilante on a mission to clean up the streets. The original Joe Blade had you controlling a gun-toting soldier, saving diplomats from the complex of an evil mastermind. Joe Blade 2 was evidently the gritty sequel, in which the battle-hardened, shell-shocked veteran comes home to a town rife with crime and decides to take things into his own hands. Does that make Joe Blade 1 and 2 the video game equivalent of Dead Man's Shoes? Anyway, the reason Joe Blade 2 is on this list is of course because it has a loading screen minigame. This was welcome because back in those days, games took a long time to load. Joe Blade 2's minigame appears to be some kind of choppy version of Pac-Man. Serves Namco right, really. Additionally, in 1987, a technician working at Mastertronic created Invader Load, a Space Invaders clone that played during the loading screens of Commodore 64 games. It was such a good clone that players would often stop the tape during loading so they could continue to enjoy Invader Load instead of playing the main game. And perhaps this is why we're not really seeing loading screen minigames nowadays. Imagine if the latest AAA releases were being upstaged by loading screens that were more fun. Sorry, Aloy, I can't help you on your quest right now. I need to beat my high score in this Pong clone. Yeah, including these now is just not worth the temptation, I would say.